Hello everyone and welcome to the download from 24 IT Services. Another brilliant show today with a great guest from our local business community who I've been speaking with on a regular basis for the last few years. Let me switch over to my co-host for today, Stephen Farr.
Hello. Hi, AJ. How you doing?
How are you doing today, Stephen?
Yeah, good.
Yeah?
Excited, a little bit nervous about this. Put me in person, I'm absolutely fine. Put me on a camera, it's a little bit of a different space.
It is a little bit different, isn't it? But like I say, as far as you're concerned, we're just having a chat today. Again, behind the curtain of the download, Stephen is in the office, and you might be able to see in the bottom of the shot, we have the new guest microphone, which was supposed to arrive before the last episode where we had Mark Taylor from Automated Analytics on, and it didn't arrive in time. It turned up 40 minutes after the episode. But hopefully, and I'm going to try and keep an eye on chat this week, hopefully this means that we're no longer going to have that second channel audio echo on my side because everything's coming from one location. If anyone does notice an echo, please let me know. But yeah, no, it's great to be able to have you on today, Stephen. Like I say, I've known you from when you've been in other businesses across the local region over the last few years. You've been out to the rugby a few times. Anyone who's seen the thumbnail for today's episode, that was actually a photo from when we were at the races last year, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. One of the rare occasions where I'm not wearing a hat, so just the censored bit of the top of my head.
I always wondered what was underneath that hat. I will be honest with you. Oh, yep.
Absolutely nothing. It's a public service. If I take this hat off and it's sunny like it has been this last few weeks, the reflection off the top of my head could blind people. So I've got to keep it on. Public service. But no, really great to be able to have you on. Let's dive straight into the news for this week. And I know that Stephen, me and you have gone through some of these topics in a little bit more detail offline, just so we can have a bit more of a chat about it. But let's cover them and share them with everyone who's listening in today. So the first story for today is, and I've spoken about this in a little bit more detail previously, but the common misconceptions around Mac security. Now, I'm a Mac user. I've been a Mac user since the late 90s, I think it is. I still use Windows machines as well. I've got Linux machines at home as well. But there is a common misconception from people that Macs don't need antivirus or endpoint protection, as we actually class it as. But whilst there are still far fewer security threats facing Macs and Windows machines, they're still there. And this news story today is kind of a perfect example of this. Forbes reported yesterday about the atomic macOS stealer, also known as Amos, which was traditionally just an information stealer attack. However, cybercriminals have now updated Amos, which now embeds a backdoor into user systems and allows cybercriminals to maintain ongoing background access to Macs and access over those machines even without the user being aware of them, even after a system reboots as well. This could allow attackers to potentially have access to your systems for an extended period of time. It could allow them to be able to monitor and steal data, passwords, even browser sessions. So if you're signed into like your bank account or something like that, without needing multi-factor authentication, they can just lift that browser session off of your machine and place it onto one in their control and have full access to whatever you're signed into at that given time. But you could also have card details installed in your browser or even just other files on your system that these cyber criminals will be able to access with this background access into your system. The Forbes report also states that the Amos threat group already have a large end-user infection base, and that these people were targeted in spear phishing attacks, meaning that the cyber criminals were using social media to be able to detect who to target in a phishing message. Now, this could be like people saying, oh, I use a Mac, or they've got photos using a Mac and in their social media and stuff like that, and detecting who is a potential high-level target that they could send phishing messages to. And apparently this group have active campaigns underway right now. Apple have actually yet to respond to these reports, which were also published from TechRadar, Bleeping Computer, and also many others. However, it's important to remember that users should be aware that they need to keep their systems up to date and secure from zero-day threats, but also enabling robust third-party security measures as well, such as the ones that we provide to our customers and clients in now 17 countries across, I think it's nearly 15,000 user endpoints at this point. But it's important that people have the right protections in place. So I suppose a question for yourself, Stephen, today is, do you still think that there is this common misconceptions that Macs don't need cybersecurity protection?
Possibly. I think it's down to the amount of numbers, isn't it? So
Yeah.
because there's a smaller group, obviously Windows is I think it's from reading stats, it's about 95% of the world uses a Windows machine. So
Yes,
it's quite a
actually a
small.
little bit under that now. That was true probably as of about 2021.
Okay.
It, Mac now is around about 10% of the global endpoint user base.
Gotcha. So do you think, so when you were talking there about, finding out what systems people are using and what operating systems. So things like the first thing that went to my head was all these polls we jump on. Are you a Windows user? Are you a Mac user? Are you,
Yeah,
you're revealing that data, aren't you?
yeah,
And then is that being then used because X amount of people have clicked a box and then they've got, oh, hang on a minute, we can then follow the trail like a breadcrumb.
potentially. And the problem is that as things like malvertising, where people use adverts on social media platforms to be able to advertise fake things to people that are actually disguised as a threat to be able to infect an end user system. These cyber criminals are potentially not only finding new ways to be able to access these systems, but also finding new ways to collect this data as well. I mean, and this is a story I'll come back to shortly, but Samsung, for example, have announced that they're going to be launching some, well, they're going to be talking about launching some new phones today. And they're all over social media at the moment. Like they're saying, what phone do you currently use? How are you currently in contract with your phone? They're collecting quite a significant amount of data around people's phone usage,
Yeah.
and that could then potentially be used to target people if that was actually a cyber criminal who was targeting these sorts of people. So it's really important that people understand that the types of information that they share online could be used to target them in other ways.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a very important point. I think we do share a lot. I'm definitely guilty of it myself. I spend a lot of
Me
time
too.
on social media. The amount of information, just just in passing, there might be things in that people can then utilize to find a backdoor in, if you like. It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's quite worrying. I think definitely keeping your systems updated, making sure that you've got the latest patches updated on your system is a good way to protect you,
yeah,
but also making sure that you are monitoring and yeah, and just try to stay as compliant as you possibly can.
yeah. I suppose the kind of the follow-on question from this is: do you think that high-level executives in not only like large businesses but small to medium-sized businesses, like business owners or senior managers, that maybe have these misconceptions, could be tricked by a sophisticated targeted phishing attack to potentially grant someone access to their systems without them knowing?
Possibly, yeah. I think we're all at risk of a phishing attack, and I think certainly if you're a smaller business when you're trying to wear sort of 15 hats, um,
I have more than 15 hats. Way more than 15 hats.
uh, you're just busy, aren't you, every day trying to do stuff
Yeah.
within your business, and then we saw one the other day that looked very very convincing. Somebody shared on LinkedIn that it looked like it came from within their company. I
Yeah.
think it was actually using a different alphanumeric code for one of the letters, so it was an,
Yeah, that's
a different.
quite a common way of being able to do it
Yeah,
using kind of like the Greek alphabet and
that's it.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it looked, it was I think it might have been an S, for instance, but it
Yeah.
wasn't an S. It was yeah, it was a different character, but actually
Yeah.
that took them to a different website because they
Yeah.
were able to use it to in this attack. And
Yeah.
you know,
Domain
using a simpler
impersonation
attack.
attacks, I think, is probably what it's classed as.
Gotcha.
Where people will use a domain that looks ever so slightly, well, it looks convincing enough to be able to get someone to be able to um on a cursory glance think, oh yeah, that's coming from the right
Yeah.
company. Like changing an L to a one or something like that, or a what is it, alpha instead of A sort of thing. And those letters can look very similar, but at a just a very quick glance, you wouldn't have no idea that like it's coming from the wrong place.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when when you are trying to do lots of different bits in your business, we don't always possibly spend the amount of time really checking through those things, especially if it's
Yeah.
just, oh, I need to update this. Okay, yeah, click a button here. Do you find that is there a way that we can save this for stopping those emails? Is there a protection we can use for emails to flag those things?
There is, and this is something that we do provide to businesses, like I say, around the world. Just laughing at Jordan Smith from Seven Studios in the comments. Yes, Jordan, 12345 is not a password. But yes, we have tools such as Active Email Threat Protection, which uses AI and machine learning to be able to monitor for not only the emails that are coming into a business, like the domain that it comes from, or the branding that's being used inside these emails, but also the type of email that's being sent. So, like, what is the request? Are they asking someone to download a file? Are they asking someone to click on a link? Are they asking someone to change bank account details, for example? Like, some of these will be classed as suspicious things for someone to be able to do.
Yeah.
Are they asking for, I don't know, one of the common ones is send gift cards or something like that. Like, all of those will be flagged as quarantine. And not only that, but as an IT support and cybersecurity provider, we get pinged about these on a regular basis so that we can look at them and say, look, is this legitimate? We have our own cybersecurity operations center with trained cybersecurity professionals and ethical hackers who can look at these, monitor these types of threats. And in the case of if it's a completely benign threat, we can allow the email to go through. But if it's a potential threat, we can not only remove it from the systems and make sure that no one actually can access it, but we can work with the business to say, look, this is a type of email that you've received. What we want to do is, in case anything like this was to happen again, we want to provide training for your end users about the common signs to look for and common requests that come into your business that you should be keeping an eye out for.
Okay. And is that something you offer as regular training?
Yeah.
Or is it, yeah.
Yeah. We can offer it as like in-person training if needed, but also we have our own online training portal that our customers can access to be able to get regular training on these types of threats. Because at the end of the day, the weakest link in any business's cybersecurity chain is the people in the
Yeah.
business. So it's really important that people stay aware of the not only the common threats but new threats as they occur as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
But moving on to threats that have occurred for businesses, following the M&S hack, which was first services back at Easter, I think it was now. It's strange that we're still talking about the M&S hack this far on. But the M&S chair, Archie Norman, has said that they are currently in rebuild mode and that even their online clothing and distribution centre in Castle Donington was still offline following the cyber attack, which is to say that it's taken this long. I know that they said that they had business continuity plans in place and redundancy plans in place, but it does beg the question, how robust were they and how often were they reviewed to still have one of their big sites offline months later following the attack? He told Parliament this past week that they had been quick to report the incident to the National Cybersecurity Centre, which in turn then raised awareness of the attack for others and helped them put security measures in place to protect the wider retail sector. But what we've got to keep into consideration in here is that Co-op and Harrods were also targeted at the same time, and there could be the potential that other retailers and supermarkets and people like that were also being targeted, but either they had better solutions in place or the attack on M&S forced them to bolster everything and kind of review everything very quickly following the attack taking place. He has specifically said, though, that he is aware of a number of serious attacks that never get reported to the NCSC, so the National Cybersecurity Operations Centre. He said he has reason to believe that two, I'll use air quotes for this, big UK firms have been hit by cyber attacks in recent months that have gone unreported. Now, it's not clear who these businesses could be. It could be others in the like supermarket and retail sector, or it could just be other big businesses that he's aware of. But it's important to bear in mind for this that the Information Commissioner's Office, or the ICO, state that businesses should report personal data breaches without undue delay and within a 72-hour window, which could indicate that these firms that he's talking about didn't have any personal data accessed in the attack, but we also don't know because it's not been reported. It's also worth noting that the new cybersecurity and resilience bill, which could come into effect later this year, could reduce this 72-hour window to as little as 24 hours, and they will cover much more, even holding people such as ourselves, managed service providers, to much more accountable measures, and also increasing the requirements for businesses to assess things like their wider supply chain and ensuring their suppliers have a minimum level of cybersecurity to be able to follow. So I suppose the question following this news topic is, do you think that businesses, no matter their size, should be forced to publicly disclose any cyber attacks, regardless of if they believe personal data was involved in the attack, especially as attacks are becoming more complex over time? I mean, the statistic is that I think in 2022, 2.39 UK business, sorry, 2.39 million UK businesses were targeted in a cyber attack. But last year, that increased to 8.58 million UK businesses. And small to medium businesses alone were accountable to 67%, I believe, of the amount of total attacks that happened throughout 2024. So do we think now that businesses should be held more accountable to disclose if they were the target of a cyber attack?
I think that's a real touchy ground. In all
Mm.
fairness, I
It
think
is.
you mentioned at the beginning of that piece that we're still talking about the M&S issue now. So
Yeah.
not only did the M&S get smashed when it happened with everything getting locked down, and I've heard some various different figures about how much they've lost, what data's been
Yeah.
actually revealed.
Well,
But
£300 million just in this financial year alone, and
yeah,
that's not including the stock impact that they had as well.
yeah. So you mentioned about with people having to go public on disclosing if that's happened. So yes, if there's a risk or if somebody's been exposed, you want to know that if your data has been leaked.
Yeah.
That said, the ongoing effect and damage to that brand, M&S has been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
The damage to that branding is how long is that going to take to recover?
People have been saying it could take years to be able
Yeah,
to not only recover financially from the attack, but recover their reputation
yeah,
within the market following the attack as well.
yeah. And obviously we don't know how this has happened. It could have just been from one person opening a random phishing email
Mm,
that's just opened the door and it's
yeah,
just happened.
yeah.
However,
The current knowledge on this that has been shared is that it is believed that M&S's IT provider, I forget the name of the company. I did have it in a note somewhere, but one of their IT support personnel was convinced into resetting a password for someone with senior enough access to be able to then access the systems and launch the attack. However, M&S haven't confirmed that. It's currently being investigated from the last information that we saw.
right, gotcha. So M&S turns out to be the victim, but actually, unfortunately, the security issue potentially wasn't M&S. The
Yeah,
security issue was
their provider.
within their MSP.
Yeah,
And that's a real big conversation piece, especially that's somebody in the space that's
yeah,
that you're paying a premium to in order to have this protection out
yeah,
there. If you're a smaller business, you try and do everything in house yourself. You try and protect yourself the best you can. As a much larger business, it's just going to be impossible. That's why you mentioned about Castle Donington still being offline.
yeah,
I've been to a couple of the big distribution centers, and everything is automated. Everything is online with computers, with robots, with moving track systems. It's not like when I worked in a warehouse back in the day. You're taking one bit out of a box and putting it into another bit and pushing it along on a trolley.
yeah,
If all those systems are still offline because they're all connected, but the issue is, unfortunately, is that M&S has been massively hit with the lack of with the exposure of data
yeah,
and the damages to their systems through an email that was sent to somebody that they're paying
yeah,
in order to provide a service to protect that. Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's really that. massive can of worms that opens if that is
It
actually factual
does.
truth.
And it does beg the question, and it links into the new cybersecurity and resilience bill that I was speaking about earlier, is that it's now more important than ever that people such as ourselves, businesses who support these multinational businesses, these large enterprises, but also small to medium-sized businesses throughout the UK as well, be also held accountable for the services and security that we provide as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm thankful here at 24, we are both Cyber Essentials Plus and ISO 27001 certified, meaning that we've gone through independent audit reviews of the not only the cybersecurity that we have in place, but also the cybersecurity measures that we provide to our customers as well, to ensure that they're of the highest standards. And it's also part of the reason why now we actually will not onboard a new client unless they take our cybersecurity services, because we feel it's important that these businesses should follow this minimum standard of cyber protection. And yes, it does mean us turning down clients every now and again, but we would rather make sure that people understand the importance of cybersecurity and make sure that their business is secure against these evolving attacks than it is for us to take then the risk of them being targeted and attack and us not being able to protect them.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it's not only their reputation, but it's our reputation as well.
Oh, completely. And I think that that will affect, all of your customers.
Yeah.
If you have an issue that's, you know, yeah, I think there's definitely a piece that we need to be more mindful, both small and large businesses, to have a minimum standard
Yeah.
of cybersecurity. The attacks are getting more and more complicated. Obviously, you've got things like, as you mentioned, the ethical hackers that are here
Yep.
to test systems. However, there are obviously groups of people that are coming together. You mentioned first of all on the AMOS stuff.
Yeah.
That's somebody's created that. There's a human behind that would have put that together, or a group of humans that have put this together to go out there to cause frustration, to hack
Yeah.
somebody's site. And the ongoing cost is huge, absolutely huge. But
Yeah.
should businesses have to come forward and mention that they've been hacked? I think the fear is, and I don't know how many businesses would probably do it, but the damage to your business reputation could be in the millions. But if the if the hackers only want 20 grand,
Yeah.
you've got to weigh out. It's a
Yeah.
business thought, isn't it? And
I
that's
think
terrible, really. But that's, I think, is where
yeah.
you're being held to ransom, and that's ransomware is what it was called in the beginning, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And I think especially when personal data is involved, yes, for certain, people should not only should this be shared with the ICO, but also the people whose personal data has been stolen should be made aware as well within a minimum standard of time.
Yeah.
But like you say, the question is now other types of cyber attacks. Should those be disclosed as well? Should they be forced to? And how could that then publicly affect their reputation as well?
So if
It's
you've
a
lost that data, so if let's say they've had, I don't know, 100 million contact details of clients stolen from them,
yeah.
they may not have that information to actually contact those clients now. If that's been stolen, it's not in their system. It's just been, taken.
Potentially, yes, it could be completely stolen. So there's multiple different ways that this could happen. Is that attackers could gain access to a database that they have that has contact details in, for example, user account information. They could steal that information, take it, put it on their own machines, servers, whatever they decide to do with it, and then use a ransomware platform to be able to encrypt the data that is on the business servers. And I think in the case of M&S, for example, that is what had happened. However, a lot of ransomware attacks now, and this is kind of getting into the misconceptions around ransomware, is that not all ransom attacks nowadays involve the encryption of information. Sometimes cyber criminals will just gain access to an end user system, steal the data, and then contact them and say, "Oh, we've stolen your data. Here's proof. Here's a segment of your data." They may not have deleted it. However, they're then trying to extort these businesses into, if you pay us X amount in Bitcoin or whatever they decide to be able to like charge people, if you pay us this amount, we will delete this information. However, then you're trusting a cyber criminal who's already accessed your system to do the right thing and delete the information if you pay that ransom.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes it will involve the deletion of data, sometimes it will involve the encryption of data, but it doesn't always happen in that way. And it's about making sure that you have the steps in place to begin with to make sure that that data is protected, I think.
Yeah. So how do people get these steps put in place?
Well, first of all, by following, like I say, the minimum standards of things like Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. Now, Cyber Essentials is the minimum UK government regulator standard for cybersecurity in businesses. Includes certified tools that you can use. So, for example, not using traditional antivirus and now using endpoint detection and response solutions that use AI and machine learning to monitor for attacks. Also enforcing multi-factor authentication now across a business, enforcing complex password policies, encryption levels, and different things like that. And that's part of what our minimum cyber defense level involves.
Okay.
For Cyber Essentials, you can actually become self-certified as long as you have the right tools and solutions and documentation of these in place. You can actually become self-certified to say that you follow the minimum UK government standards for Cyber Essentials. We also support people by putting that documentation together for them. But then Cyber Essentials Plus involves independent audits of those systems and also data controls within those businesses, which then extends into the ISO 27001 piece as well. And for those who want to find out more about this, because it is quite a complex subject, and depending on your industry, you may want to become Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus certified, especially if you work in industries such as accounting and law, or you work with anywhere that has potentially government contracts. For many government contracts now, they are requiring businesses to at least be Cyber Essentials certified, if not Cyber Essentials Plus certified.
Yeah.
So we have a full article on our website that explains the differences between Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001, and what business or which types of businesses may want to look into each of these things. I see Jordan, my co-marketeer at 24 IT Services, in the chat. She will probably try and get that link put into the chat if anyone wants to be able to read more about it, because it's a really interesting subject. And as things like the cyber resiliency bill come into place, these are now going to be more important than ever. We do have a article which I can't remember whether it's live at the moment, but I wrote it earlier this week. So we have an article that's going live about these changes in the cyber resiliency bill, and other changes that are impacting not just the UK but across Europe as well. So if anyone wants to be able to read either of those articles, you can find those over on the 24 IT website over in the news and insights section. I will move now over onto the third story for today, which, moving away from cybersecurity a little bit, I did want to talk a little bit about the tech industry, but also how people have lost their jobs and what's many are calling a very insensitive post from a high-level executive over at Microsoft this past week. So Matt Turnbull, who is the executive producer at Xbox Game Studios Publishing, people are saying that he really missed the mark this past week on a post on LinkedIn. For those that don't know, Microsoft laid off around 9,000 employees last week, many of whom came from the gaming and games publishing side of the business. However, Mr. Turnbull's post on LinkedIn, which has now been deleted, by the way, has been labelled as insensitive and just plain disgusting by people, as he suggested that those who had lost their jobs use AI tools such as ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, and other tools like that to be able to provide them with a 30-day plan to be able to regroup and find new roles, as well as rewrite their CV for different types of roles within different industries as well, and even provide emotional support. Now, he did admit that he was aware that AI tools can cause strong feelings in people, and he wanted to try and offer the best advice possible given the circumstances. And he went on to say that no AI is a replacement for your voice and your lived experience, but at a time when mental energy is scarce, these tools can get you unstuck faster and calmer and with more clarity. But whilst his suggestions were overwhelmingly seen as insensitive given the circumstances, especially with Microsoft laying out plans to invest, I think it's about $80 billion into data centers to train AI models. I mean, do you think that AI could replace or support people in cases where that they could be going through job loss? Like even with if it's just being tools such as action plans or reviewing CVs, do you think that AI can be used as a tool for these people who have lost their job?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of uh, assistance that AI can give you with regards to some of the things that are out there, um, helping you streamline your LinkedIn profile, for instance. It can do quite a nice analysis of what
yeah,
is in there and make help you highlight keywords that businesses will be looking at, making your CV look current depending on the length of time that these people have been within those businesses.
yeah.
Um, some of them might not even have a CB. It's but if it's something there to help. So the large language models are useful for formatting and
Yeah.
making language understandable to help. In all fairness, they are a little bit they're very very upbeat and very positive when you ask the right questions, and it's kind of like,
They can
this
be,
is who I
yeah.
am and what I do, and all of a sudden you've turned into from being a marketing manager to a financial business rescue
Yeah.
provider. Well, actually, no, I'm just doing the marketing, but depending on the information you feed it, if you're asking it to look at your CV, look at
Yeah.
what you've done on your LinkedIn history, and then feedback with, tell me what jobs I'll be good at, what experience
Yeah.
I've got, things you may not even think of. Unfortunate, yes, that does seem quite insensitive coming from a tech company
Especially
with
that are investing
billions
billions in
into
AI,
AI. Yeah,
yeah, and then losing jobs as a result. But
but unfortunately, that's kind of what we saw.
yeah,
I think when some of these places, the gaming industry has seen very huge amount of changes
massive in
coming
recent
through.
years.
So
Massive.
unfortunately, they as with everything, I think there's going to be a lot of change. AI is personally, I think, the next industrial revolution.
Yeah.
There's a lot AI will do that will be beneficial. I think there's a huge amount currently pinned around the LLMs. I think they're
Mm.
getting a lot of the publicity, but there's so much more out there that AI can do that's more than these LLMs.
Yeah.
And the future will show us. But there's yeah, it possibly very insensitive at given the time. I suppose, did he do it on email as well? Did he just email everybody and let them know, or was it a video?
No, this was just a post, a written post on
Right.
LinkedIn.
Okay. So how did he notify the members of staff that were losing their jobs?
It was just a public one saying, "Look, we're aware that so many people have lost jobs this
Yeah.
past week, and here are some recommendations."
Right.
So yes, many people, because it wasn't as personal, because it was just plastered onto a public forum, basically,
Yeah.
labeled it as insensitive because it wasn't done in a like if you would have done this in an individual manner, not maybe not individual, given it's
Yeah.
9,000
It's a lot of
people,
people, isn't it? Yeah.
but maybe preparing them to be able to lose their jobs and giving them tools and recommendations. Look, we want to try and support you move on to your next position, even though you're losing your job. People are saying that that's part of the reason why it felt insensitive. That it was just, here's a public post on LinkedIn. Here's how you can use AI.
Yeah.
And I think the more concerning bit with this is that his suggestion that AI could possess the ability to provide emotional support to people. I mean, I suppose, again, this is a question to itself. Do you think that an AI model can be able to give the right kind of support to people the same way that a trained professional therapist or people in similar roles can be able to provide support for people?
I don't believe AI in its current guise would have the
No.
empathy to share with how somebody is feeling.
Yeah.
Um, could AI read a book or a citation or something that was written by a human and understand it to therefore give its logical answer as to how you could deal with this problem? Possibly. Look at
Yeah.
there are apps out there. Mindful is an app,
Yeah.
and obviously that is something that's been built. People have put information into that, and that will give you information back. It's not going to have the empathy. I think we're a long, long way away from that. I think that humans need human interaction. However, if you've got something that can prompt you to ask questions, if you've ever picked up the phone, or if you've ever been to Andy's Man Club, Menfulness, or if you've
Yeah.
ever picked up the phone to the Samaritans, there are questions and things that they ask you that trigger thoughts in your
Thoughts,
head
yeah.
to make you almost answer your own, come up with your own solution.
Yeah.
They're not there to provide advice. They are there to give you a space to open up.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think it's completely right. However, if something can provoke a thought in your mind that changes your current tract of thought, then stuff like that can help. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely help. You know, you can read a book.
Yeah.
You know, you sit there and read a book. The book's got no empathy. A book is written word.
Yeah.
I think that's what AI would be able to give
Yeah.
you. But it's
The
about
AI
changing.
doesn't have that lived experience and the knowledge of what has and hasn't worked for people. Yes, they can recite information from training materials it's been given, but it's not had the knowledge and experience that a trained therapist may have, for example. And potentially, and this is not me saying that this is a good thing, but potentially given time and giving enough training and even giving enough information on the person, like being able to, and again, I'm not advocating for this, but being able to scroll through social media posts, understand maybe a person's headspace. Yes, it may be able to give more tailored support, but I don't think we're there yet.
No.
And I think it's incredibly important that people, if they have lost jobs, if they are one of these 9,000 people, or even if you've lost your job recently, you could be around the Doncaster, South Yorkshire area, or just anywhere throughout the UK or around the world. If you have lost your job, whether it's recently or weeks, months ago, if you're struggling, reach out to someone, speak with someone.
Yeah.
As Stephen said, there's places out there like Andy's Man Club that you can go along to sessions and just talk about what you're feeling about and get that support that you need. And yes, use AI to be able to support yourself with CV, create an action plan, look at different roles that could be out there for you based on your skills and experience. But if you are struggling mentally, speak with someone. That's the most important thing that I can say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving on now, we've got a few very short news stories, which we don't need any discussion points around them, really, I don't think. But firstly, it is Amazon Prime Day deals week this week. But what I do want to remind people is that there are also many other brands, even local businesses, so across the Doncaster and South Yorkshire area, who are also putting on sales this week to be able to provide their own deals to customers, and that where possible, try and support those local businesses. I know it's sometimes more convenient to be able to shop on Amazon, just get it delivered. I do it. I'm not going to say that I don't, but it's best to try and support those local businesses, especially when we've seen like the local high street start to see shop fronts close in recent years. So if you see a deal in a local high street that you could maybe also get online, maybe just think about buying local. Also, if you're an Android user, more specifically like your Samsung phones, Samsung is expected to announce the Z Fold 7, Z Flip 7, and the Watch 8 later today, which are expected to be their thinnest and lightest folding phones to date, whilst also keeping their current battery capacity. I mean, for myself, I've loved seeing the evolution of folding phones this last couple of years. I would honestly drive one as a secondary phone, but personally, I would reach for it. But Stephen's using it as a webcam at the moment. I love my iPhone. Like, I'm heavily invested into the Apple ecosystem. Yes, this is me now giving away that I'm an Apple user. I've given it away multiple times in not only this show but other shows as well. But I would like to think that I can avoid spear phishing attacks. But
touch some wood.
Yeah, let's touch plenty of wood. But yes, if you are an Android user and specifically a Samsung user and are interested in these new folds, there is a presentation coming from Samsung later today. Let's move on to the 24 tech tips topic for this past week. I keep saying that there's too many T's involved in that. But this links into my post that I put onto LinkedIn this morning. Windows 10 will become end of life in just 97 days. So just over 3 months to go. And it looks as if Windows 11 could actually soon pass Windows 10 in its global market share of OS adoption or among Windows machines, as it only has a separation of about 1%. Now, this was much higher if we looked back even only to the beginning of this year. Thankfully, here in the UK, Windows 11 already holds a lead over Windows 10, with 58.94% over Windows 10's 39.54%. And it looks like businesses are beginning to phase out much of this older hardware and operating systems for not only enhanced security, but more long-term compatibility as well. And this is something that we've been working with businesses, like our own clients, and also businesses across the local region for about a year now. But I suppose the bigger question now is, why is this important? So most importantly, when Windows 10 becomes end of life on October 14th, those who are still using it without Microsoft's ESU, which is extended security updates, they will become exposed to potentially new cybersecurity threats, zero-day attacks where a like a vulnerability is found that hasn't been patched, and they're not going to be getting these regular security and feature updates to protect from these new threats as they come up. For businesses, this is extremely important, as it could mean that their data could be at risk of being accessed by cyber criminals. As I mentioned before, about 8.58 million cybersecurity threats were targeted on UK businesses just in last year alone, and that 67% of those businesses were small to medium-sized businesses, with roughly 50% of all UK businesses being targeted in that as well. So it's more important than ever that businesses find ways to stay secure against these evolving threats and ensure that they have the right security solutions and upgrade older hardware and operating systems where possible to protect against these threats. But also, by not upgrading, many people could fall out of compliance with these standards that we spoke about earlier: Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001, where you're not meeting these minimum security standards, which could also impact your business's ability to either gain or retain contracts with people, as I mentioned before, if you're working with government or in particular protected industries. It's important that if you haven't upgraded, that you look into upgrading to Windows 11 or compatible devices, but also start phasing out that older hardware that doesn't support Windows 11 to future-proof your business. Because, as I mentioned previously, Windows 10 devices will also start to lose support for many of these newer features and software as people start to phase out that support. So software that you're using right now on a Windows 10 machine may stop working if you don't upgrade to Windows 11, as the providers of those software start to stop supporting it. Now, if anyone would like to find out more about the end of life to Windows 10 and what it means for your business, we do have an article over on the 24 IT website about this, but you can also reach out to myself or any members of the 24 IT team to discuss this. We're also offering complete technology alignment reviews to ensure that all of your business tech, not just your computers and your laptops, but network equipment and everything like that, is suitable for your business as you grow and scale as well. Just making sure that you stay protected, but also work towards your future. But I suppose for yourself, Stephen, do you know of many people who are still using Windows 10 devices?
I think the question is, how do you know which software you're using?
At a
Well,
cursory
operating system
glance,
probably.
looking over someone's shoulder, I think only knowledgeable people would know at this point.
Yeah, yeah. So that, I think, is the bigger question. I know when I used Windows XP, you knew you were on Windows XP. It made
Yeah.
lovely noises and it looked like Windows XP. But making sure I think if you press the Windows key and R as a button, it will tell you what your current Windows OS system is. So that's first of
Yeah.
all would be a good way just to check, simple little check on
So
your
it's
computer.
Windows R, and then there is a command prompt. I forget what it is off the top of my head now, concentrating on the news, but there is a command prompt that you can put in to tell you the version that you're currently using. But you can also go into the about your computer to be able to see the version that you're currently using as well, which is just usually in your settings.
I think that's the first thing to check would be just to see actually what system they're on. I've also done quite a bit of reading about this just to make sure that the systems that I've got are also on Windows 11 already, and luckily they already are.
Yeah.
Um, do you think they're going to what is it just going to be game over come 14th of October, or do you think they'll do a paid subscription service? What do you
So
think on that? Do you know what's
the
happening?
ESU, which I mentioned about earlier, is a way to be able to pay for up to 3 years of enhanced security updates. So
Okay.
basically, the same updates that you're getting right now for Windows 10, you can pay to be able to get those updates over a longer period of time. Now, whether current software that you use will remain compatible through that time remains to be seen, because software providers from Adobe, Sage, and whatever software that you use for your business, they may not keep that Windows 10 support
Right.
far after this October 14th date when it becomes end of life. Now, one thing that Microsoft have started doing or announced this past week for consumers, for example, is if you link OneDrive, I believe it is, to back up your system files and pay for OneDrive, if you need to pay for enough storage within OneDrive, that is, that you will get 1 year of free security updates.
Okay.
Now, that's not going to be suitable for businesses. And similarly, the extended software update platform won't be a long-term solution for businesses. It's a temporary stopgap measure at best. And it's best for businesses to look into reviewing the technology that they do use to ensure that it falls in line with, like I say, the minimum recommended cybersecurity standards, also in line with things like Cyber Essentials and different things like that as well. So yes, there is a solution to be able to continue to get some security updates, and similarly, security solutions like endpoint detection and response will still continue to support Windows 10 throughout this ESU phase as well. But again, this is more of a stopgap solution
Yeah.
temporarily,
You're
and
buying time, aren't you?
yeah, it's better to try and keep your business technology up to date to ensure that you're prepared for the future more than anything. And a couple of weeks ago, I did speak about minimum hardware requirements, actually on the podcast as well, actually.
Next thing, actually.
Um, and ensuring that not only the minimum hardware requirements that you have for Windows 11 are there, but also what is right for your business as well. I mean, the minimum hardware requirements for Windows 11 aren't actually that high, but for many people within businesses, using that absolute minimum just wouldn't be feasible for them. So on our website, we do have a full article that talks about what we recommend as a bare minimum for Windows 11, but also key considerations that people need to have for different roles within a business as well. So someone who works in marketing will have different requirements to someone who works in sales. Someone who works in accounts will have different requirements to someone who works in, I know, 3D modeling, for example, or video production and things like that. And it's about understanding those key considerations for your users as to what will work best for them going forwards as well. So again, if anyone wants to read the article, that's over on the 24 IT website, over in the news and insights section. I do keep see Jordan popping comments of links to these different articles that I'm talking about over in the comments. Bless her, she's doing a really good job with that. Thank you very much, Jordan. But we try to build these resources for people so that they can access them. We send it out on emails to clients and people throughout the local region as well. So if you're interested in being added to that mailing list and finding out about many of these things, feel free to drop me a message. Feel free to drop us a form over on the website and we'll get you signed up to that. And it's just a really useful thing to be able to stay up to date and educated on these. I mean, Stephen, do you think it's important to keep up to date with your own technology, not just from a business point of view, but from a personal side as well, whether it's computers, whether it's phones, tablets?
Yeah, definitely. I don't watch a lot of TV, so for me, sitting and building websites, playing with code, it's something I spend a lot of time doing. So making sure that I'm a bit of a Google fanboy. I couldn't get on with Apple and one button to do everything. It was like no. So I tend to run a lot of the Google product. I've got a Google phone. Yeah, try to stay up to date on the latest developments of what's going on there.
Yeah.
It's important. We've just got an issue at the moment where I've just upgraded one of my daughter's phone SIM,
Yeah.
put it in an old Nexus 5, which is probably 6-7 years old, and it
Yeah.
doesn't work with the new SIM because it's a 5G SIM and an old phone
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
play. So
Compatibility. Yeah.
and that's built in obsolescence, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you need to kind of keep up to date with the latest stuff that's going on. So in fact, we thought we were just getting a SIM card. She now's got a new phone.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
Works well on her part, I suppose.
She's done all right. Yeah, she's done all right. But it's not helped me out. But I think that's, making sure, like you've mentioned, about these vulnerabilities that are out there, making sure you stay up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it's incredibly important for business and for personal to make sure your data is protected. My phone now, I've got, you've got biometrics on your finger to
Yeah.
make sure it's scanning you. It's face scan. There's lots more security on the newer phones than there ever was before.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the bits that we need to make sure.
And thankfully, on the phone side, now we're finding that many of these phone manufacturers are now promising longer periods of time for security updates. I think the new Samsung phones is something like 7 years of security updates. This may not be feature updates, but at least 7 years of security updates. And Apple, for the longest time, again, Apple fanboy, Android fanboy, but Apple for the longest time have been providing security updates and feature updates for phones going back 7 or more years in some cases. So it's important now that these phone manufacturers are considering this as part of their long-term strategies when launching these new devices. Going back to Samsung talking about launching new phones later today and what that could mean for how often do you want to be able to upgrade. I mean, we still don't know how long these hinges on some of these new folding phones are going to last. It may be that your security on your phone will last longer than the hinge will, but it's important that these companies have these solutions in place to be able to protect their end users. But that's not just phones, whether it's computers, laptops, and things like that as well. I mean, my personal MacBook no longer gets Apple updates anymore. So I'm currently looking into getting a new MacBook because I don't want to be using that for extended periods of time where I could be targeted with vulnerabilities that are on that older operating system. So no, I'm not going to tell people what that operating system is. But that's something that I'm currently assessing myself at the moment, and I find myself using my work MacBook much more often because I don't use my old personal MacBook anymore.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important that we keep up to date, especially with these new security patches. I mean, new features are good, but making sure that you stay secure as well is even more important.
Yeah, well, that's just in business in general, isn't it? Staying on top of what current trends are, what's going on in the marketplace for the business, not just in your tech stuff, but actually what's going on in the political circles or geo circles to make your business a success. All those bits are important to try and keep on top of everything. It's just every day there's something else we need to know about.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today's 24 IT tech tip topic of the day. But now we're moving on to the section of the show where I always like to try and highlight a local business and highlight the guest that we have on with us today. So, Stephen, tell us a little bit more about IDON and what you do in the local region and things that you have coming up at the moment.
Thank you very much. So IDON is an acronym. It stands for Identify, Develop, Attract, Review, and Network. 5 great points that you need to be thinking about in your business, no matter what it is you're doing. We run a business directory. We've got an events timetable. I currently run 3 events a month here in Doncaster. We do sweet networking over at Simple Treats. We do
really good event, though, by the way.
Twisted networking at the Twisted Broom, which is a magical Harry Potter themed kind of bar, which is actually on tomorrow, 5 o'clock till 7. And we also do a last Wednesday networking at the Mason Arms in the centre of Doncaster as well. So that's a bit more of a social, but again, another nice place just to get people to come together.
Yeah.
And it's about, building the community around business. Business is tough, and certainly in today's climate with all the changes on national insurance and all these other things we're all going through, and we're really starting to feel the pinch of that now. When it kicked in April, we're a few months into that, seeing the extra cost on businesses. But having somewhere where you've got I want to build a community where people can come along. We can talk about what's going on in business. We can share, problem share is a problem halved.
Yeah.
I've also recently launched a pay-as-you-go co-working space at the Doncaster Unitarian Church. That's on a Monday and a Friday from 9:30 till 5 o'clock. We charge £10 a head. I'll even throw in the drinks. But it's a place, again, it's somewhere where we can get together. We can, you can work rather than working from home in your 4 walls and, you just I find it quite difficult being in sales
Yeah.
or marketing, just working from home. You can quite easily lose track of your own thoughts. You end up, I'll just let the dog out. I'll just go and do the washing.
Yeah.
Actually, go into a place, and this is why I want to try and put this hub together, is go into a place where you're able to sit and chat with other business owners. You might have your headphones on, just getting on with your work, but you've got other people around you that should you have a
Yeah.
problem,
You can
should you
use it
run
as a
into it?
sounding board. You can
Exactly
use to
that.
be able to just chat with about, I don't know what's going on in the news and stuff, but also you get recommendations. I mean,
Yeah.
for context, that's part of the reason why I pushed for starting the marketing forum, originally the marketing meets, which has now been folded into Doncaster Chamber events, is that I wanted to provide a space and a regular location where marketing professionals could come together and be able to share that information and make people not feel as lonely in their working environment. So no, I think what you're doing with these shared working spaces, with these networking events, which are absolutely brilliant, by the way, I've headed over to a
Yeah,
few
they're
myself. um Absolutely brilliant. And it's a way to be able to bring that business community together beyond other things in the local region, and maybe not having to follow some of the same sort of strict structure, should I say, that other things have to follow within the local region. I think that what you're doing is really, really good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Um, what
Um,
else have you got coming up as well at the moment then? Because I
um,
know you're doing a lot with like supporting local businesses.
Yeah,
Um,
we've been working with a couple of local companies. I've just rebuilt a couple of websites for them. We've also helped them implement some automations as well to make their business a bit more streamlined.
mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm really passionate about making a difference here in Doncaster. I think this is a fantastic city of opportunity.
Yeah,
There is a huge amount of fantastic businesses here. And I really want to make a difference for the next generation so they can come through, they can get mentorship from the successful business owners that are here. Um, but also, you know, we've got a city with a fantastic amount of spaces
yeah,
that people could flourish into, could build a business from just spark from an idea to, you know, really create something. And there is space here in Doncaster for, offices for tech companies. We've got Gateway One coming. Really excited to see that launch. You mentioned you had Mark from Automated Analytics on previously. Fantastic companies that we've got here in
yeah.
Doncaster that we really need to, shout to the world. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from around here. I've actually moved here from Milton Keynes. And
Neither's Mark, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. So we've lived in these other places and we've seen what's happened there and the success and things that have happened there. And I look at Doncaster and it is a city of opportunity. Every single one of those empty buildings is an opportunity. What it takes is somebody to help that spark within somebody say, actually, do you know what? I want to create this. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Let me help you introduce you to the the businesses or the people that can help you take your little
yeah,
idea and turn it into a roaring fire of passion for you for
yeah,
entrepreneurialism. And I really want to see Doncaster, be the success it should be. We've got some fantastic connection links. You've got some brilliant organisations here, bringing some real high class people to the city. Doncaster Chamber do some great stuff for the city. We've got the airport that's going to open. Um, there's a lot of stuff coming, and I can't wait to see what happens with this city. I think there's a huge amount of
yeah,
things on its way, but it all starts with that one person, that one business. We've got
yeah,
markets that if you go online and listen to all the negative side of things and it's always terrible, it's terrible. But actually, we've got space. There's a lot of places in the country that you don't have space to do
yeah,
this. You could start a market stall business here in Doncaster. We've got space to do that. You could build that app and create something. There's people like yourself, AJ, and the marketing forum that you guys have got. If a business wanted to start with a little idea, they got themselves involved with a marketing forum to get larger ideas of what they can
yeah,
create, build their businesses both online and offline, and then take that into a shop or take it into a warehouse that we've got here. Business Doncaster have got some phenomenal spaces that they can help you out with. You don't know where that could go, but it's got to
yeah,
start with someone. It's got to start with people, working together. This is what It's about giving people the space where they can create and
yeah.
flourish and make these things happen.
It goes back to that common hashtag that we use also often around the local region. Doncaster is great. Doncaster is great for many things. We have a great local business community, and we have great people within that business community who are here to support each other. whether that's through Doncaster Chamber events, whether it's through Business Doncaster events, whether it's through independent events such as yourself and the way that you, on an individual basis, support local businesses, or whether it's businesses supporting each other, whether it's us supporting our clients in the local region, which now number, I think it's about 140 local businesses, or whether it's, I don't know, we've got Past Logistics next door and how they work with local businesses, and they've sponsored people like the Donnyfest this year,
Yeah.
or they've become front of shirt sponsors for Doncaster Rovers. We have so many great local businesses with a passion for our local region, and it's amazing to be able to see them working closely together and supporting each other and helping each other succeed. And that's part of the reason why we chose to become headline sponsors for the Business Awards this year. We wanted to support and celebrate what makes Doncaster great and our Doncaster business community great, and we're really excited to be a part of the journey that our city is on at the moment, and kind of advocate for making it even better,
Yeah.
to an extent as well, and celebrating those amazing accomplishments. But no, thank you very much for joining me today, Stephen. It's been really interesting having you on and hearing your thoughts on these different news topics, on the Windows 10 end of life as well, but also hearing more about what you're doing in the local region, how people can become a part of the like co-working spaces, but also coming on to the networking. So reminder to anyone, if you want to join the Wizarding Networking, I forget the name of it now, actually, Stephen.
Twisted Networking.
Twisted Networking.
Yeah,
At the Twisted Broom. So
5 o'clock till 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Tickets are available on Eventbrite. They are also on LinkedIn, or if you want to head over to my website, which is idarn.com, details of everything we offer and everything we do is in there.
Yeah. And let's say there's other networking events as well. You got the one at Simple Treats as well as the last Wednesday networking as well. So if you want to get involved in some of these local independent networking events, feel free to go and look at those. I've headed along to some of these before, and I'm going to hopefully head some shortly. But really good to be able to interact with other local businesses as well. So make sure you head along to those. Now, just wrapping up for this week, I will not be having a new show next week. Next Wednesday is my wife's birthday, and as at 24 IT Services, one of the perks of working here is we get our own birthdays off. But I've also booked the day off as well so that we can spend the time together. She can't get away from me, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's a birthday. If she has the day off, I get the day off. So we get to spend it together and have a nice treat. And also, like, it's our daughter's like leaving assembly for her school that she's in at the moment as well. So we're going to head along to that and stuff. So looking forward to spending the day with my wife next Wednesday. But it does mean that there will be no new show. I will be back the following week where we will be discussing about high availability internet and how businesses who rely on internet for operating their day-to-day operations and for many of the softwares that these use can continue to operate even if their primary internet line goes down. And this is something that we've had lots of businesses in the local area coming to us about recently, so it'll be a really interesting discussion around that. So hopefully you can join me then, and like I say, thank you so very much, Stephen, for joining me today. I hope that not only yourself, but everyone else who's been watching in today or has been tuning into the video on demand or podcast has a brilliant week as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AJ.
See you later. Bye-bye.